All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about something that every single one of us does, all day, every day, and that's making decisions. We're talking about everything from the small stuff to the really huge, life-altering choices. We're going to break down a new way of thinking about how to do it better. So let's get right into it. So to get us started, just take a second, really. Think about the last big decision you had to make. Could have been at work, could have been personal, whatever. Now be honest. Was it a perfect, clean, step-by-step process? My guess is probably not. And that messy reality is exactly what we're here to explore today. So here's how we're going to tackle this. Our journey is going to scale up from the inside out. We'll kick things off with what's happening inside your own head. Then we'll zoom out to see what happens when you throw a team into the mix. From there, we'll look at those really big leadership-level decisions. And we'll wrap it all up with what I think is the ultimate test: ethics. The goal? To give you a super clear framework for your next best decision. Okay, let's start with level 1, thinking inside your head. This is the foundation for everything else. I mean, before you can convince a team or lead an organization, you have to understand that constant battle going on right between your ears. You know the one, the tug of war between logic and your gut instinct. This right here really gets at the core of it, the gap between how we think we should decide and how we actually do it. On one hand, you've got this ideal, the rational model, which is this perfect logical process. But the reality for all of us is something called bounded rationality. See, our brains just can't process every single piece of information out there. It's impossible. So what do? We take a shortcut. We settle for good enough. And here are the two engines that are really driving all of our choices. You've got System 1, that's your gut. It's fast, it's automatic, it's that intuitive flash. Then there's System 2. That's your more analytical brain. It's slow, it's deliberate, and it takes real work to fire it up. Now, the trick isn't just knowing you have both. The real key is learning when to trust that gut feeling, and more importantly, when to hit the brakes and let System 2 do the heavy lifting. Okay, so let's move on up to level 2 and see how this all builds. Now we're talking about deciding within a team. And let me tell you, the second you add other people to the equation, with all their own biases and viewpoints, the complexity just skyrockets. It's not just about me anymore. Suddenly, it's about we. So let me just throw this question out there. What happens in a meeting when everyone just agrees, like a little too fast? Is that a sign of a fantastic team that's all on the same page? Or could it be a warning sign of something a lot more dangerous? Well, a lot of the time, it's a huge warning sign for this right here, groupthink. This is that tendency for a group to want harmony and consensus so badly that they just stop thinking critically. Nobody wants to be the one to rock the boat, right? So good ideas, alternative ideas, get shut down, sometimes without anyone even saying a word. And this is where really bad decisions get made. And one of the biggest things that fuels groupthink is something called the shared information bias. It's wild. Teams just love to stay in their comfort zone, talking about the stuff that everybody in the room already knows. But the real gold, the most valuable information, is often that one unique, critical piece of the puzzle that only one person holds. If that person doesn't feel like they can speak up, the team's collective brainpower is just completely wasted. All right, time to scale up again. We're at level 3, leading the big decisions. Now we're moving beyond just one team, and we're looking at the entire organizational maze. At this level, it's not just about people anymore. It's about processes, systems, and the culture of the whole place. When things are moving fast, one of the absolute best tools for navigating this maze is the OODA Loop. It's simple: observe, orient, decide, and act. But here's the kicker. It's not a one-and-done thing. It's a continuous cycle. You gather intel, you figure out what it means, you make your move, and then boom, you're right back to observing to see what just happened. It's all about being agile and learning on the fly. But what if the process isn't clean and neat like the OODA Loop? Well, that's the chaotic reality of what's called the garbage can model. It basically suggests that in big, messy organizations, decisions aren't always made in a logical way. Instead, you've got problems, solutions, and people all just floating around. A decision just kind of happens when those three things collide at the right moment. It can be a wild mix of timing, politics, and honestly, just pure luck. And that brings us to our last and I think most critical level. Level 4, the ultimate test, ethics. Because a decision can be effective, it can be super efficient, it can make a ton of money, but the real question is it right?
That's the question that truly separates the good from the great.
A really tricky ethical conflict to watch out for is something called moral hazard. Here's the problem. It happens when one person gets to reap all the rewards if a decision goes well, but the risk, the fallout if it goes bad, gets pushed onto somebody else, like the company or its customers. This setup is a recipe for disaster because it incentivizes incredibly risky behavior. The person making the call is basically insulated from the consequences. So we've gone on quite a journey, right? From inside your mind to your team, all the way up to the entire organization. So what does it all mean? Let's boil all this theory down into a simple, actionable toolkit you can use for your very next decision. Okay, here it is, your new decision toolkit. Just 4 key principles. At the individual level, you've got to acknowledge your biases, know when System 1 is running the show and when you need System 2. For your team, you have to actively fight groupthink by hunting for that unique, quiet information. At the organizational level, be intentional. Choose how you're going to decide. Use a framework. And underpinning it all, always, are your ethics. Put your values first, every single time. And that pretty much brings us to the end. So the final question isn't just about what you learned here today, it's about what you're going to do with it. Knowing everything we just talked about, what's the very next decision you're going to make just a little bit differently? Thanks for joining me.